Smug sometimes, not necessarily attractive.
Also ahead, Brit Hume attacked unfairly for that statement. We'll tell you who the villains are in this fracas.
Caution, you are about to enter the no spin zone. Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. President Obama's last stand. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Just 40 days left before Barack Obama becomes a lame duck president. So last night he participated in a town hall among friendly folks. The president dealt with many issues, but two of them caught my attention. First, why he doesn't say the words Islamic terrorism.
I learned from listening to some of these Muslim families, both in the United States and overseas, is that when you start calling these organizations Islamic terrorists, the way it's heard, the way it's received by our friends and allies around the world is that somehow Islam is terroristic. And that then makes them feel as if they're under attack.
Now, with all due respect to Mr. Obama, that is a naive view of the world. Everybody knows most Muslims are not violent people. However, many Muslim nations contribute heavily to terrorism. Iran, for example, is a rogue country that actually helps terrorists kill people. Pakistan allows the worst jihadists to live on its soil and plot their murder scenarios. Saudi Arabia allows radical Muslim preachers to indoctrinate children with hatred against non-Muslims. And in Africa, there are a number of governments that allow Muslim killers free rein. So the jihad is not an aberration. It is a well-financed, well-organized movement that has gained support among a significant number of Muslims worldwide. That's the truth. By being soft on the jihad, by failing to confront the worldwide evil, President Obama has allowed ISIS and other groups to gain strength. It is a fact that some young Muslims believe the jihad is winning because it has not been crushed as it should have been. There's no question that Barack Obama is sympathetic to the peaceful Muslim world, and that's not a bad thing. We need allies like Jordan, Egypt, and Morocco. Those countries help us, and we should not alienate them. But any rational Muslim is not going to take offense at the words Islamic terrorism. Why? Because that would be irrational. While visiting France this summer, I saw firsthand how the French people have generally turned against all Muslims. You can hear and feel the bitterness over the ISIS attacks. Also because of mass Muslim immigration into France. Some of that bitterness is not rational and could be mitigated if the French Muslim population would outwardly condemn the jihad. That has not happened to any meaningful extent. And all over the world, many Muslims stay silent. President Obama's primary obligation is to protect the American people. A strong argument can be made that he has not done that effectively. The enemy needs to be defined, Mr. President. And if some people get their feelings hurt, that's too bad. The second thing that caught my attention in the town hall was disrespect toward the USA. As you know, some Americans believe this is not a noble country, that blacks, for example, are treated harshly by the system simply because of their skin color. The football player Colin Kaepernick believes that, and so he is disrespecting the national anthem. A few other athletes have followed him, and some kids have as well. Mr. Obama addressed it.
So I want Mr. Kaepernick and others who are on a knee, I want them to listen to the pain that that may cause somebody who, for example, had a spouse or a child who was killed in combat, and why it hurts them to see somebody not standing. But I also want people to think about the pain that he may be expressing about somebody who's lost a loved one that they think was unfairly shot.
That is a false equivalence that Mr. Obama is putting forth. Issues of police shootings, for example, should be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. No system is perfect. There are bad law enforcement officers in this country, and that should not be tolerated. However, the overriding nobility of America far outweighs individual bias and terrible mistakes on the part of a few police officers. Colin Kaepernick and others who despise their own country do have a right to vent. But by taking things out of context, by diminishing the proud history of this country in freeing millions of people all over the world, those anti-American displays insult us. President Obama should not equate personal disenchantment with mistakes, even fatal ones, when it comes to respecting the legacy of this country. Mr. Obama did redeem himself somewhat by saying this.
I believe that us honoring our flag and our anthem is part of what binds us together as a nation. And I think that for me, for my family, for those who work in the White House, we recognize what it means to us, but also what it means to the men and women who are fighting on our behalf.
Okay. The mark of strong leadership, and that's what we need in this country, strong leadership, is to take a stand. Mr. Obama understands that diminishing America is a bad choice, but somehow he always equivocates and does not make his points with certainty and clarity. There are not two sides to this story. America is a noble nation, period. Those who dissent have to be tolerated, but you don't have to applaud that dissent if it is misguided and uninformed. As for the jihad, it should have been defeated a long time ago. A strong leader would have done that. Or am I wrong? And that's a memo. Next on the rundown, Donald Trump holds a closed meeting for some religious leaders today. We will tell you what happened in there. And later, Mr. Trump says America's fallen apart, and a fatal train accident in New Jersey today may be proof of that. Those reports after these messages. Campaign 2016 segment. Tonight, earlier today, Donald Trump held a closed meeting here in New York City with about 30 religious leaders, mainly Protestant and Catholic, who had a chance to question him. Let's now here in the studio, Pastor Robert Jeffress, who emceed that meeting. First of all, why no press?
Well, the Trump campaign didn't want people coming feeling like they were poster children for the campaign. They wanted them to be able to speak freely. So I think it was the right decision to make.
Okay, so they didn't want to politicize the Q&A.
That's right.
With the religious people. Were they all clerics?
It was mainly academicians, Catholic and evangelicals.
Pinheads.
Well, I was the MC. I'm not going to put myself in that category.
Okay, so it was theologians then?
It was theologians, but they were talking about, Bill, something very practical, and that is their concern about the diminishing of religious liberty due to the pursuit of the secular progressive agenda. They feel like it's being crammed down the American public's
throat. Give me an
throat.
example of how some questioners feel that religious freedom is being diminished.
I'll give you 3 examples. The Little Sisters of the Poor being sued by the federal government.
Got it.
A high school football coach being fired because he prays voluntarily before a football game.
Okay.
And then they talk about in Christian colleges, not secular, Christian colleges, Title IX telling you that you have to allow men who are confused about their gender into the women's showers. Those are all examples where you have an out-of-control court system and federal government that is really diminishing religious liberty.
Did all 3 of those examples come up in this?
Yes, every one of them and many more.
And what did Trump say about that?
Look, Donald Trump believes the remedy for all of these problems is conservative Supreme Court justices. Most of these cases are ultimately going to be deliberated in the court. And Donald Trump believes that we ought to have court justices who interpret the law using the Constitution, not political correctness.
So, and people of faith have to be worried that if Hillary Clinton is elected, she will appoint another or 2 liberal judges, and then it's all over. Then it's the secularism always overrides the religious.
That's exactly right.
Right. So therefore, that some religious people are willing to overlook Donald Trump's personal profile.
Right.
And I'm not casting aspersions at Mr. Trump, but he's not a very religious man. He's not a doctrinaire religious guy. Did that come up in the meeting today? Did the religious folks, the theologians, question Trump about his personal lifestyle?
They didn't. But
no
question came up with him present. But I went ahead and broached the subject in my closing remarks.
What'd you say?
And I said, with him seated to my left, I said, look, I am not going to choose Donald Trump necessarily to be my child's third-grade Sunday school teacher. But that's not what this election is about. We're looking for somebody who can reverse the downward death spiral of this country. And, Bill, I said to them, there is only one candidate running for office who is pro-life, pro-religious liberty, pro-conservative justices on the Supreme Court, and only one candidate who speaks with respect when he talks about Christian values rather than contempt and disdain like Hillary Clinton. And that candidate is Donald Trump.
All right. Did you get pushback from any of the 30 in the meeting? Did somebody say, look, you know, we don't care because we don't feel he's fair to migrants, we don't feel he's this? Or
honestly, after he left, I got a little pushback. I had somebody say, I resent you being so absolute, because I said to me, Bill, this is not a war between Republicans and Democrats. This is a battle between good and evil, right and wrong, righteousness and unrighteousness.
You did a hell and brimstone in there.
That's right.
Good and evil. So you're saying that Trump is good and Hillary's evil?
I'm talking about the principles we're talking about, not the individuals.
Not the individuals.
We're all sinners who need Jesus' forgiveness. But I do believe there are absolute rights and absolute wrongs.
All right. No Muslim clerics or...
This was Catholic and evangelicals, but I do know his campaign has reached out to the Muslim community.
Jewish people?
As well. Not in this meeting, but there have been other meetings where they've been in. In fact, a year ago, I was up there at Trump Tower, and we have some Jewish folks there for that.
All right. Final question. Trump needs the evangelical vote. Many of those people stayed home, didn't vote for Romney.
That's right.
Because he was a Mormon. That wasn't fair. Do you think they're going to come out, the evangelicals? You get an indication of that.
I believe they are, Bill. I think
that you want them to. But
I want them to, but from what I'm sensing, and I've talked to thousands of pastors over this last year, I really do believe they think this is the last opportunity to turn this country around.
All right, Pastor, we appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming in. Directly ahead, terrible train crash here in New York City today. In the area, I should say, it's over in Jersey. Once again, spotlighting the fact that this country's infrastructure is falling apart. True Serum's been investigating Donald Trump's charge. The federal government's responsible. Then later, Brit Hume under attack by ideological zealots. Bernie Goldberg on that case upcoming. True Serum segment tonight, the collapse of American roads, bridges, airports, tunnels, and transportation.
When we have $20 trillion in debt and our country's a mess, you know, it's one thing to have $20 trillion in debt and our roads are good and our bridges are good and everything's in great shape. Our airports are like from a third world country.
Now, today in Hoboken, New Jersey, a commuter train crashed into a wall, killing one woman, injuring more than 100 people. This disaster, not unexpected, because the New York City area is literally falling apart, despite the fact that New York State has the highest taxation in the country. So what the deuce is going on? Here now in New York City, our True Serum correspondent, Shannon Green and Eric Shawn. So, Shannon, you and I have known New York. We know New York as well as anyone. We were local correspondents together on the streets. And I am paying, and I'm sure you are, an enormous amount of tax to the city of New York, to the state of New York, to the federal government. And everywhere I go, things are falling apart. What is the essential problem?
Well, New York has the highest in the country, 12.7% state local taxes. But here's the deal. You're right. We also, when you drive, in the tolls, we pay 1/3 of the tolls of the whole country. We pay $4 billion in the New York area. When you come through the Midtown Tunnel from Long Island to Manhattan, that's run by the MTA, $1.2 billion in tolls. The Port Authority, $1.3.
Just so it costs $16 to come in and out of New York City. If you have to do it every day, it's $16 admission to get in here. So you mentioned the Midtown Tunnel, and it's falling apart. It is literally falling apart. So where is all that money going?
Well, right, the Midtown Tunnel right now. One reason that I hope you're not late for work, because they are right now engaged in a one-year plan, a year to go, $200 and some odd million to fix the tiles, the electricity, and this sort of thing, and the infrastructure of the tunnel. But that's caused amazing backups at times, and they're trying to do this, but
then when you get through it, every road in Manhattan is blocked off with construction. Things are falling off buildings. So my question again is, where is the money going, the billions and billions of dollars in taxes and tolls and all that? It's how did it get this bad?
Well, they say it's going to fix the infrastructure, but they've ignored a lot of the infrastructure for many years. One study
They
says
being the politicians, the governor, the mayor, all of that.
Half the roads in Manhattan, the jewel of the city, are in fair or poor condition, according to Tripp.
50%.
50%. 43% of the roads in poor condition, and 47 bridges in New York are structurally deficient.
Mismanagement. But another thing is the union pensions, all right? And you get the people who work on the roads here are all union people. You get a disability, you're out, you got to pay pensions. Now, I'm not hitting the working man on this, but there's an enormous amount of money going to pensions and disabilities.
And for the whole country, it's estimated we need $3.6 trillion to fix the infrastructure.
And the infrastructure fixes.
They haven't even budgeted.
Let's get to the national picture and Ms. Breen. All right, so it's not just New York City, it's everywhere. All right, the interstate highway system. Trump is right. I mean, you got $20 trillion in debt, and you're borrowing, but you're not fixing the infrastructure of America. Why not?
Yeah, we can't keep up with it. We spend about $416 billion a year on infrastructure in this country, utilities, highways, dams, bridges, those kinds of things. But they are crumbling faster than we can fix them. The money that we're spending and allotting to them every year does not keep up with the basic maintenance on them. So they continue to deteriorate. We're not catching up because the money isn't there.
What do you mean the money isn't there?
Well,
I mean, the taxation here in America is enormous. So where is the money? If it's not there for the infrastructure, $416 billion a year isn't going to do it. How much is going to do it?
Well, both the candidates have talked about this. Mrs. Clinton says she wants a big upfront $250 billion allotment that would go to infrastructure
on top of the 416, right? So that gets it up to close to $700 billion.
Right.
And she says that'll create jobs, which it would. It would.
And Trump wants to double that. So for people who want to talk about government spending, he says you could sell low interest bonds and those kinds of things to try to finance it. But this is something he talks about all the time. And he has from the very first time I ever interviewed him. He's big on infrastructure. He knows it. It's what he does. He says it'll make America great again.
So both of you are basically saying that the politicians, the people in charge of allocating the money on the state and federal level, all right, don't really put it into infrastructure or haven't. They diverted it to other places. The money went to military. Trump made this point that it went to the Middle East. Trillions of dollars are spent in Iraq and Afghanistan and all that, while our own country is going to hell.
Well, the American Society of Civil Engineers says there is a lot of money going to it, but it just cannot keep up with the demand. For example, they say that roads, you need $100 billion a year just to keep up, but we're allotting $91 billion. So we're going into the hole every single year.
But that's a $9 billion shortfall. That's not the problem.
But that's just to keep up with infrastructure. So forget doing anything new. These are just repairs.
Right. Are there more cars on the road now? I mean, were any stats? I mean, because when I've been living on Long Island for not my whole life because I lived other places, but I was born in Manhattan, raised on Long Island. It was never this bad. It was never this bad. I mean, did everybody buy 4 new cars? I mean, does everybody have 6 cars?
You've got 4. Eric's got 4.
No, I only have 1 car.
No, we only got 1 and 1 doesn't run. Use Easy Pass. You got to get an Easy Pass.
You can use Easy Pass. Look, the best way to get around in New York and in L.A. I was in L.A. I mean, you're driving across people's lawns. All right, that's how bad it is. Out of the way! I'm coming through the backyard. You can't. It's just everywhere you go. It's jammed everywhere. Now the roads in L.A. are not as bad as the roads in New York because the weather isn't as bad. All right, and the weather takes its toll. But it's the same thing everywhere. That they're not prioritizing. And Trump suggests, Shannon, that a lot of this money has been wasted and stolen. Do you believe that?
Well, one of his big things is he's going to go after fraud and abuse because in every government system, we all know it's there, whether he'll have success or not
It depends on the level. New York, you think New York's a corrupt city?
Well, it has been, yes. They have spent billions of dollars, but they've been way behind. They hadn't allocated a lot for a long time, and they're just trying to play catch up, and we don't have enough money
But we
make
do
it
have
right.
enough money. See, that's the thing. There is enough money coming in from the folks. It's just being spent the wrong way, I believe. But put it this way, this train thing, I mean, if this is an infrastructure deal, if something happened, the track went wrong or something, it's going to hell to pay. All right, Shannon, Eric, thank you. Plenty more ahead as a factor moves along this evening. American police under siege, accused of shooting too many folks. Is It Legal has been investigating that accusation. And Brett Hume being hammered by left-wing zealots for a comment he made. Bernie Goldberg with the story, and we hope you stay tuned for those reports. It's a legal segment tonight. What are the standards police must meet before they fire their guns? San Diego this week, cops shot a black man who pointed a vape. That's an electronic cigarette device at them. Man was acting erratically, walking in and out of traffic, police say. He adopted a shoot-like pose with the vape. In Charlotte, North Carolina, police shot a man dead saying he had a gun, but that gun was not pointed at cops, according to some videos. So the question becomes, when can police defend themselves with deadly force? With us now are, is it legal duo, Kimberly Guilfoyle and Lisa Wheel. All right, Will, are there standards?
Yes, back to 1985 law. There's standards that say police can shoot if they reasonably believe that someone is going to harm them or someone else around them, and they also reasonably believe that shooting someone is the only way to keep them from running away. That's the only way they can keep them from not being arrested. So if they've got those two things, they're going to be harming someone else.
So you could actually shoot a fleeing suspect?
Correct.
Really?
Well, if that's the only way that they can keep them from being that they're escaping, right? And that they're going to harm someone else, and they're going to harm someone else, or they've got a gun and they're going to harm someone else. They've got the gun and they're fleeing and they're going to harm someone else.
But in the case of Charlotte, and we believe the police that the man did have a gun. His history was a violent history. He had guns before. DNA is supposed to be on the gun, his DNA. We believe it. But the gun wasn't pointed at police, Guilfoyle.
Yes, but nevertheless, the presence even of a gun that an officer can see with the suspect refusing to comply with commands and orders by the police dramatically escalates a situation. And then if the officer feels that it is necessary, it's reasonably necessary to use force, of course you would want them to try to subdue the individual, but it really ups the ante because a gun that's like this can be a gun that's like this.
All right, so you guys are on the grand jury because that's where these cases go, all right?
For the trier of fact.
Okay, and so the police officer obviously is going to say, listen, we asked the guy to do this, and that's on tape. You know, comply, would not comply. He had a firearm, not a book, as some witnesses falsely claimed. But the gun was not pointed up. That'll be enough to say justifiable?
It's got to be what the reasonable police officer believed at that time.
Not 20
minutes. Obviously, the police officers involved are going to say, we felt we were in danger. We saw this gun. He wouldn't comply. And that's why these officers get off so much, because the grand jury says, okay.
They put themselves in there in the position of the police officer at that time.
You're going to take the stand and take an oath, and you're going to tell the truth, and you're going to have other officers there. And in this case, you not only have recipient witnesses, eyewitnesses from the scene, you also have other forensic evidence that matches up to show DNA on the gun, etc. And you have videotape, and you can put all that together, and you hear repeated commands over a stretch of time.
And then you hear the wife going, "Don't do it, don't do it." I don't know what it means, and we don't want to speculate.
I used to be on the officer-involved shooting team for the San Francisco DA's office.
Oh,
so I was specifically paged out for situations like this to arrive at the scene, process it, and do questioning of the officers to determine if charges should be
being on that board, would you, from what you know about Charlotte, was that a justifiable shooting?
I think there's a very high likelihood that it will be deemed a justifiable shooting.
Right. Now in San Diego, the guy didn't have a gun.
Right.
He had a little thing, and he was
vaping.
Yeah, like this.
Right.
They say. All right. So is that enough?
Well, but the vape looked like a gun.
Okay.
See, that again, it's the reasonable. See, look at that. It looked like a gun. You have to put yourself in the position of that reasonable officer at the time.
All right. Now, this is speculation, but
it's a tougher sell, right? Because the jury's going to say, could you see it was a vape? Like, drop that deadly.
Why would you shoot a guy, though, who had an electronic cigarette?
But you can't.
No, and you see they have weapons up.
And you had two officers at the time. One used simultaneously firing. One used a taser. One used a gun. So what that then does is say, hey, one used a taser, one used a gun. Is the officers that used the gun, was that officer then not being reasonable?
All right, so that's a more dicey case.
You could even have a split decision on that.
But I will say that in the three, Oklahoma, Charlotte, and San Diego, this is speculation, but I think it will turn out that at least one, and maybe all three of these guys who were shot dead, had PCP in their system.
Well, that's the argument for certainly one of them, the woman that's been
because that makes you crazed and act erratically,
and that's going to be the defense in the one that's been.
Now, if they do, if that's shown, that certainly will be an
that's a defense,
right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's why you have to wait for all the facts, like you're saying.
That's what we say all the time.
All the information.
But the reason we ask you to do this is because the American people should know what the standards are.
Absolutely.
For every police officer. Thank you very much, ladies. When we come right back, Britt Hume under fire, pardon the pun, for comments he made about Hillary Clinton. Unfair? You bet. The Gutfeld McGurk on more politically correct madness, this time at the University of Michigan. Up ahead.
O'Reilly Factor, the #1 cable news show for 16 years and counting.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly, and Weekdays with Bernie segment tonight. Listen to this statement by Britt Hume just after the debate on Monday.
What did they think of the two faces that they saw while the candidates were not talking, while they were listening? The Trump expression was one we're all familiar with from the earlier debates. He looked annoyed, put out, uncomfortable, and she looked, I think, for the most part, she looked composed, smug sometimes, not necessarily attractive.
Obviously, Mr. Hume was talking about Hillary Clinton's facial expressions. He defined that at the top. But that did not stop the vile Media Matters organization from insinuating that Mr. Hume was talking about Hillary Clinton's physical attributes. The incredibly biased Vanity Fair magazine actually said, quote, Britt Hume can't stop making sexist comments about Clinton. The amazingly inept and dishonest Yahoo News Service said, quote, sexism award goes to Britt Hume for saying Hillary Clinton was not necessarily attractive during the debate. Also participating in the smear campaign, Huffington Post, Fortune Magazine, AOL News, and The Guardian. Joining us now from North Carolina, Bernie Goldberg. Now, I don't think there's any question the way Britt Hume framed it that he was talking about reactive shots during the debate. He actually said that. So these people are liars, or am I missing something?
No, you're not missing anything. Look, here we go again. The hypersensitive liberal speech police are out there on patrol protecting Hillary Clinton and, by extension, I guess, all women from a horrible human being like Britt Hume. Let's get something straight right from the jump. Britt is a Southern gentleman, and there's no way in the world, no way that when he said sometimes unattractive, sometimes smug, and not necessarily attractive, there's no way he was implying that she was ugly. It's impossible. On top of that, the idea that he would say something like that on national television, that she's ugly, he's not insane. These are the snowflakes, and by snowflakes, I mean liberals who, when confronted by an idea, a word, or anything that offends their sensibilities, start yelling sexism. And it's a word that, thanks to them, is virtually meaningless, just like the word racism. They need to, this will give them some ammunition, the liberals. They need to man up, is what they need to do.
You don't say that at the University of Michigan. We're going to do that with McGurk and Gutfeld in a moment. They come out with, you can't use man and women anymore. But anyway, look, I see this as not a Britt Hume issue so much, but an attack on the Fox News channel, because it all comes out of Media Matters, which is this is what they do. Take things out of context, try to smear the network, but they never understand it never works. It just doesn't work. I mean, we're about to celebrate our 20th anniversary here. It's still far and away the highest rated cable news service. But they just can't stop. They're like compulsive, these people.
I totally agree. I totally agree. This is what they should consider if they want to be fair. You could make fun of Donald Trump, his hair. You could say it looks like an orange shag carpet. You could say Chris Christie is fat. You could say Bernie Sanders is an old white guy. But watch what you say about Hillary Clinton, because, get this, because she's a woman, and despite what liberals say about women, how they're strong and tough and all this, they really see them as fragile little flowers that need protection from the liberal speech police. Stop. I'm begging you guys.
No, they're never going to stop.
Stop it.
Because they're winning. They're winning with this stuff. And it's true. They're absolutely winning. These crazy left fanatic zealots are winning. Because now we have a nation intimidated. Because the racist label, the sexist label, they slap it on you. People get upset. They don't. Nobody. Who wants to be called that? Nobody. Then they have to defend themselves. You know, they're winning. And I don't know. Because there isn't enough media to come up against them. Like you and I are doing this segment. Nobody else will do this segment. Nobody else.
Exactly.
Nobody else will do it. All right. So they get away with this crap. They get away with this dishonesty day in and day out. Last word.
They're more. You're absolutely right. They're more concerned about. I wasn't going to use the word, but since you did, this crap, than they are with whatever happened in Benghazi, whatever Mrs. Clinton told the families of the dead men there.
Right.
They don't care about that.
No.
The IRS scandal, one of the great scandals of modern times in America, they don't care about that. The Obamacare and all that's going on.
They love
no,
it.
this is what they're
right.
This is what they're concerned about.
All right, Bernie, got to run. Thank you as always, McGurk and Gutfeld on deck. A deer attacks an American citizen.
This wild scene, short as it is, was captured on the dash cam of Howell Township police officer Nicholas Austin.
I've never seen anything like it.
The boys, moments away. Back in the book segment tonight, what the heck just happened? As you may know, political correctness running wild on college campuses all across the USA. University of Michigan webpage now allowing students to choose their own preferred pronouns. With us now to explain further, Bernard McGurk and Greg Gutfeld. Gutfeld, what's going on in Ann Arbor here?
It's Ms. Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
To you. You've already violated University of Michigan. They unveiled a web page to give students the opportunity to choose their own pronoun. It's an exercise in inclusiveness because he, she, him, her, those are exclusive. You need something more gender neutral like Z. They have things like M-self, verse-self, ter-self, and I am elf on a self.
Okay, so wait, let's check. Z is Z-E, right?
Z-E.
What does that mean? What's Z?
It comes from the French. It's like, I love Z beret.
All right. So say you pick your pronoun, McGurk.
Right.
And you don't want to be referred to as him or he anymore. Do you walk in and tell the professor, you have to call me, what,
Z or H-I-R, here.
Here.
Some made up.
Is that the point
yes,
of this?
that's
you
it.
tell the professors what they have to call you?
If you're gender neutral, that's right. And of course, as you might imagine.
You can't say miss. You can't do that anymore.
If you do, you get arrested for a hate crime.
No, you don't. But this sounds absurd, but you guys are telling me that in the classrooms on the campus of the University of Michigan, you can insist that your professor call you some kind of crazy thing.
It started in the University of Wisconsin, University of Oregon, and of course, as you might imagine, it's not just political correctness, it's lunacy. It's madness is what it is. And the college campuses used to be fun places, right? They used to be joyful places. Now they're like indoctrination camps. I mean, with these angry, thumb-sucking cry bullies looking to be victims, looking to be, offended by somebody, and they're turning into language cops, shoving all this down people's throats. And it often bleeds into the society at large is what happens.
Well, it won't bleed into this society at large.
I don't think it's gone far enough. If you look at vehicles, why are vehicles all feminine pronouns? Like ships and planes are called she's. What if a boat feels like a he? What if he's or a Z?
Yeah.
How can we do? I don't think we should be calling boats and planes she's.
But like a bunch of bedwetting losers we're becoming. The Russians and the ISIS are going to be laughing at us, and also the Canadians and the Swiss if we go on this course. It's getting
I can
really
see
bad.
the ISIS trial, and please don't call me a him. Right off the head.
This is why elections matter, by the way.
Like that. Okay, now, there was this terrible incident. The video is unbelievable about a deer being struck by a car. Roll the tape.
Fighting to keep a 200-pound buck from getting into her SUV in this unbelievable video, Ellen Snyder pulled no punches.
Still can't get my head around it. I mean, it's crazy. I've never seen anything like this.
This wild scene, short as it is, was captured on the dash cam of Howell Township police officer Nicholas Austin.
I've never seen anything like it. I've lived in this town my entire life. Never seen or heard anything ever like that before.
So the deer hit, the car hit the deer, and then the guy stopped and tried to find out, the damage, and the deer actually went into the car after the guy.
That's right. It actually was a woman. believe
was
it
a
or
woman.
not. Yes, but
A
listen,
Z.
A Z,
Yeah.
perhaps,
Okay,
possibly. I don't want to offend anybody, but listen, you maybe could get another book out of this, Killing Bambi, right? Let me go for the low-hanging fruit here. But look, was this staged? That's my question, because these dash cams, when you really need them...
The deer died, didn't it?
It was a heroic death.
The deer died.
Yes.
So it's a terrible story. I mean, and the deer was obviously confused and didn't know what to do. The reason we're doing it is because there are some things that you can do to avoid hitting deer. And at first, if you live out in the countryside after dark, I mean, you got to slow down. You got to. I mean, you can't be driving the pickup truck 90 because you're going to hit something. And the second thing is, and I didn't know this, if you do see a deer and the deer comes out, if you blast the horn, all right, that's why there are no deer in New York City, because horns are blasting 24/7. If you blast a horn, a deer is going to get out of there.
That's true. That's true.
So that's the big impediment.
I give the deer.
It's a menace.
This was a last final act of a deer, was to say, if I'm going down, I'm taking another car with me.
Yeah.
I thought that was it was pretty heroic.
I just wonder if there's some way